Are we supposed to say anything special?
No.
Oh, okay. Hi. Thank you.
Why Groups Fail by Stephen McConnell. This is my compilation of research that I've done off of the 3 books: How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, the 21 Indispensable Habits of a Leader by John Maxwell, and Strength Finders by Tom Roth. Let's begin. First, I want to show you. This is what a group is supposed to look like. You're supposed to learn communication, responsibility, collaboration, but mostly you're supposed to get teamwork out of the mix. But let's be practical here. This is really what you get from a group. In the end, we all learn, out of every group discussion we've ever been in, that you really don't need to be trusting anyone. Just do all the work yourself. It makes it easier. The reason why you end up with this conclusion is because most groups end up lacking one, if not all, of these three very key points: leadership, cohesion, and communication. So let's begin. Groups fail because they lack communication. Now, within John Maxwell's 21 irrefutable habits of a leader, he talks about 3 very key steps you need to take in knowing how to communicate. Here's: speak simply and clearly to convey your point. That's step number 1. Clarify the message was received. That's step number 2. And follow up. Step number 3. Now, within the book, John Maxwell talks about how whenever you're talking to an audience, talking to a big group of people, or just talking to a few members in your group, you always want to make sure that the message you're sending is the message they're receiving. So you want to make sure whatever language you're using or whatever context you have, you want to dumb it down a little bit so it's easier for them to understand. It's easier for everyone in the group to be able to receive and understand. Secondly, you want to clarify the message was received. You want to ask questions to make sure that they have understood the prospect or the option or the message you're trying to get across. And finally, you want to follow up. Within a group, you always want to make sure that if you're giving a task or making sure something is done, you always want to come back later to see how that person's working on the task you've given them. Seek 3 simple steps to make sure that communication is happening well and strong in a group. This quote from John Maxwell's book says, "Educators take something simple and make it complicated. Communicators take something complicated and make it simple." In working in a group, you want to be a communicator, not an educator. Educators take simple things and make it complicated. Communicators, as he states, want to make the complicated simple. Another reason why groups fail is because they lack leadership. Now, this information was taken from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Here's some things that people fall into, some simple traps leaders fall into that end up hurting a group more than helping it. They end up focusing on the problem. Now, what I mean by that is, anything that happens within a group, you always want to understand that if there is a problem, you want to address it with the person who's over that problem, not address the problem. This is one of the reasons why, here are the ways to improve. You always want to make sure there are no more buts. Whenever you're talking to somebody in a situation in which you're dealing with a problem, Dale Carnegie suggests you start with where they're doing well, and then you lead into areas they can improve upon. So you start by saying, "I notice that you are great with people and working well with others, and I'm noticing that you're struggling in this area." You always want to use the word "and," not "but," because as young children, we're all trained that when someone says the word "but," you can simply disregard everything they said before it, because everything they said after "but" is really what they mean to say. And you want to focus on the person, not the problem. The reason why a problem becomes such a big thing is because you end up focusing on the problem and saying, "We need to fix this. This needs to be the solution. We need to find solutions for that," and not focus on the person who's supposed to be over the problem. If you end up focusing on the problem and not the people over the problem gets dumped upon the leader, and the leader has to deal with all this extra stuff instead of dealing with the people over the problems. Dale Carnegie also mentions in this, a leader's job often includes changing your people's attitudes and behaviors. If the person who's over a problem doesn't realize that there is a problem, they're never going to be able to fix it. So you could say, that's a problem as long as you want. You can do it till you're blue in the face, and the person over the problem will never realize it needs to be changed. Finally, the reason groups fail is because they lack cohesion. Now, this information is pulled strictly from Strength Finders. One thing that we are all taught as kids, and this is a very big myth we need to break, is that you have strengths and you have weaknesses, and you need to work on your weaknesses. You need to build your weaknesses as much as you can so that they will be on par with your strengths. That is not true. We want to make sure that you can focus on building your strengths, not your weaknesses. Your weaknesses are areas that you are not naturally or do not have a natural inclination toward. You want to make sure that you build your strengths so that your strengths become stronger, and when you do that, your weaknesses will naturally follow suit. As a study that was done within the book, the average person is 6 times less likely to be engaged in their job when they are not operating in their strengths. This is why whenever you're in school or whenever you're dealing with a job, the reason why you can't stand that class or, oh my gosh, you hate working with this person is because they cause you to work in an area of weakness, not an area of strength. Now, you may be asking yourself, how do I build my strengths? It's a simple math equation. You take your talent, multiply it by your investment, and that gives you your strength. So, if someone has a natural talent to art, they need to be spending as much time as they can in building that talent so that their end result is going to be much stronger than if they were to spend that time in building their talent in, say, math. In conclusion, groups fail because they lack communication, leadership, and cohesion. Any questions? And pan out to
Hey, Julie, you cover the phone?
I'll stay here. You guys have any questions? You can stop.
No.
Cool. That was cool. I mean,